Right. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker-Carl. I'm broadcasting to you from beautiful Indianapolis, Indiana. And I'm here with my friends Catherine and Lori, Karen, Dan, Jason, and Sandy. And today we are going to continue our conversation about the book Your Soul's Plan by Rober Schwartz. And today we're going to be talking about chapter 3. But before we get going, just a couple of little things. For those of you who are watching, if you'd like to participate with us, we'd love to have you. You can join us over in our Facebook group. You can find it by going to mindsetmasterycollective.com. And then, of course, if you like this video, click like, subscribe to our channel if you want to get notified every time we upload a new video, which is just about every week. And with that, guys, go ahead and just take a moment and everybody can jump out and introduce themselves. And then Catherine, you can start our chat. Okay, I'm muting now.
I'm Karen Lohoff in Arizona.
Hey, Jason Roberts here in Tampa Bay, Florida. Great to be here.
Good morning, Sandy Root here in sunny, hot Miami Beach. Looking forward to the discussion. Lori
Dan
Evans in
Sissick
Denver.
here. Dan Sissick in Las Vegas, Nevada, where we're going to hopefully get up to 112 degrees today.
All right, that was everybody, wasn't it? I think I heard everybody get in there. This is Catherine Clement in Shawnee, Oklahoma. And I'm excited this morning to get into this chapter because this chapter, well, first of all, let me preface this book a little bit in case this is the first video that you're checking into with us. This book was written by a man who was exploring the concept that we are soul, we're eternal souls, and we get together. We're like amazingly, wonderful friends and love each other on the quote other side, we'll call it. And so before we come into this life, we all kind of get together and pre-plan and say, okay, I want to learn about this, so I'm going to play this part. And then, another soul lovingly steps forward and says, well, I'll play this part. And so as eternal souls, we kind of obviously spend eternity together, but we come in and out of these bodies to have different experiences and different, learn different lessons. And this particular chapter talks, so to get this information, the author works through mediums and channels and people that have access to the other side, to the Akashic records, different things like that. If you don't know what the Akashic records are, they are sort of like the book of lives, I'll say. Maybe the life of a soul, that just all of their experiences and everything that each life experiences that you've ever lived, which I guess some souls have lived more life experiences than others, and not all of them are human, and not all of them may be even on this planet, just a completely different scenario each time. So although from what we're learning between this book and some other books we've read, and also through a website called soulproof.com, where they have scientifically shown that they are indeed communicating with the other side. We seem to, like personalities, seem to be as eternal as souls, but not quite sure how that plays out yet. So anyway, the concept of this particular chapter is talking about why would a soul choose a life where they're at a distinct, what some would consider a distinct disadvantage. And I say that because we, as humans, we kind of have this concept of, quote, normal. And that person, that quote normal person, is, you know, has this set of characteristics, and anybody that falls outside of that set is somehow seen as different, you know, or broken or challenged or whatever, because they don't have that particular set of quote normal set of circumstances. So, but as eternal souls, you know, it takes a brave soul. I need to give a little love shout out to a family here and friends, because we just lost a little girl, a 3-year-old girl, to cancer. And, you know, that's so difficult for family and friends to lose a child. And I, of course, I worked with children dying for my career. So, but let me just say, it takes such a brave and courageous soul to choose a life, and I do believe it's a choice, to choose a life that makes such a huge impact in a span of 3 years, okay? This child impacted so many lives, and what a brave and courageous soul to come into a lifetime and say, I'm going to accomplish everything I want to accomplish, and I'm going to affect all thousands and thousands of people. I'm going to do it in 3 years, you know? I mean, it's like, it's mind-blowing. And it's just been, it's really an honor. It really is an honor to know these little souls. So, but why would she choose that, to come in and be gone so quickly? And why would someone choose to come in and have a handicap? Like this particular chapter deals with deaf and blind, being deaf and blind. So my mom is actually almost completely deaf. So, you know, this chapter speaks on a fairly personal level, because it can also cross over to other challenges that, you know, birth defects and different conditions that we may have encountered along the way. And why would a soul choose such a challenging set of circumstances? I was trying to unmute. Oh, jump out.
I've been thinking in reference to, I paused there because I have someone that is in this home with me that has cerebral palsy. And I was thinking, should I talk about that experience, or should I try and figure out the experience that his parents must have had? And I've been curious about that because there's 4 children in the family. There were 4 in my family. I was the oldest, and in his family, he had an older sister and a younger sister. He might have had 2 older sisters, and one of them has passed away. And I haven't tried to ask him really too much about having cerebral palsy. He's a very interesting and enjoyable person to me. For some reason, he started to talk to me relatively early on, and he talked to me about things that I related to, that I just loved to think that he was involved with. Like, his father had a dairy farm, and he went out, and my best friend had a dairy farm, and they had the machines that they put on the udders, and you know, all that kind of thing. But that wasn't his experience. He went out and actually milked the cows, and But I remember one day he talked about, well, I knew he had to have a hearing aid put in, and I knew even with the hearing aid put in, he usually couldn't hear, and he couldn't tell where the sound was coming from. So he said one day something about going to get his, having somebody tell him that that he had a hearing problem. And I said, what'd they say? And he says, you can't hear. And someone else at the table said, yeah, that was their experience too. You just can't hear. And I was thinking, how rude to have cerebral palsy. He's smaller. If you don't know very much about it, I looked it up a little bit yesterday, and I was really frustrated because website after website after website just led me to more lists of websites instead of stories that would make sense, and I was just getting really bummed. And finally, I at least picked up a little bit. One thing, you have to have both parents, at least carriers of it. More Caucasians than any other race get it. It's still a small amount of people in the world that have it. It used to be that people didn't live beyond 10 years old. He's, I think he's 67. And anyway, the day that he talked to me about the hearing thing, I said, did you ever get mad at God? And he said, no. I mean, he just simply said no, just kind of like he was saying no to a drink of juice or whatever. And, he just really, curls through the house on his wheelchair. He gets on a bike, stationary bike that he has, and works out for 20 minutes. And I mean, really, he's quite, now that I know a little bit more about it, he's even a lot more amazing. But, I have to think how his family feels about him. And these hearts, if you can see them on the windows, his family, the smaller people of the family, brought hearts and they went around the whole house. And you can imagine with 10 residents, 12 residents, they covered a lot of windows and glass doors, and it was really cool. And then he has a nephew who's, of course, must be in his 40s or 50s, who is a principal of a school. And he put out a couple of little things that have shiny red, white, and blue sparkler looking things and a couple of flags. They did all this for the 4th of July, which was last Saturday. And it was so sweet that they came in layers of 3 of different ages to come and just honor him. And his remark was, there's too many hearts.
Excuse me, can I interject something here?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead, Lori.
I live with a man for the last 19 years who has cerebral palsy. And it is not a disease. It is a lack of oxygen to the brain during the birth. And he is a complete miracle. He's just an amazing soul. And so I just wanted to clarify that there. I don't know. It's not something you can catch. Like, I don't believe MS is that way either, but he at one point had, I'm sorry?
Go ahead, Lori.
Somebody said something and I wanted to know. He tells me at one point when he was younger that he's just been through a lot of stuff. It's amazing how he and I are together, because I was completely able at one point and I lost it, and he's never known the difference. And he had somebody in an airport one time tell him that he chose this path. And he just totally rejected that idea. And I kind of did too, so I'm anxious to get this book and see what it has to say. But I didn't want to interrupt your story. I just wanted to say that it's not something you can catch like a cold or whatever. You're born that way. Okay, I'll let you go back.
I read from the internet. It has to do with the lungs and part of the body, and it is something that's carried. I know that there's different stories with it, and certainly I know very little. I have much less time than you, even with someone who has it. I just think that I really never believed I would know anyone with cerebral palsy, and it's a delight to me to know this man.
I was going to say, going back now to what the two of you were talking about, and based on what Lori said, that you're born with it, it's not something you can catch. That goes back to the question you were asking, Catherine. How did they plan it? And as I was looking at the chapter a little bit, um, the person planning to go into that, to come into the world, and then the parents that are going to be the parents, do they make the decision to be the parents, or do they kind of, like in the book it says, or are they kind of just pulled in by virtue because they're the parents and stuff, and that's it. Those are some interesting thoughts. And for me, um,
Oh, poor Dan, he keeps falling off. Well, while we're waiting for him to pop back in again, I'll mention something. This whole idea of we choose to come here and experience, specific life experiences is a different concept than what we maybe had before. And when I first picked up this book, I had some really strong anti feelings about it as well. There's Dan. There you go, Dan. Jump back in. I know you're struggling to stay on there, aren't you? Can you hear, Dan?
yeah, I don't know what's going on with my computer. It's acting up. It keeps booting me off. And I was wondering if it was going to do that when I was talking. So I'll leave my thoughts and share them later, because right now I'm frustrated with my laptop, and I'd rather be here and listen and try and fight with it.
I gotcha. All right. It'll be better next time. Or maybe it'll straighten up here before the end. But I was just kind of talking about the whole aspect of just being kind of when I first picked up the book, being just not really sure about how how this concept kind of works for me or not for me. And and as I read more in the book, I have some things that definitely resonate with me, and I have other things that are just like, no, I'm just instantly getting this kind of like internal no kind of attitude about certain aspects. And I think that that's kind of normal, and we've kind of discussed this before, because we've talked about so many different books over the years that they just come from a different perspective, whether it's personal development or whether it is spiritual development. And I think that no matter what we look at, we're going to have certain things that we resonate with and certain things that we just absolutely don't. But one thing that I was thinking about with this whole concept. And in the previous chapters, and even in this one, it talks about how when the soul chooses to come here and have an experience, it's like choosing these really tough things a lot of the time. And so my thought about that was like, here as humans in this human experience, we're like always trying to like lift ourselves up and feel the best feelings and have all this love, and that's where we ultimately want to be and where we feel the most happy. But yet there's this contrast of the souls come here because they want to feel the lower vibrations. They want to experience the fear, they want to experience the pain, the suffering, and all of that kind of thing, so that then as a human, they can also feel the positive. So it's like this weird contradictory kind of a thing. And I'm like, it's just so weird to think about this possibility that as a soul, we want to come here to feel the suffering, but then once we're here, we're like, we just want to feel good. And but yet at the same time, even when we're in the midst of just a really high feeling of life, we tend, and this has been my experience, is I'll be at these real high ups in my life, and then all of a sudden I start dragging back down again for whatever reason, whether it's just this internal psyche thing that's just dragging me back into my own crap, or whether it is my soul going, okay, we've had some fun, now let's go back into the depths of the craziness so we can experience that too. I don't know. Yeah, Catherine, it's crazy. It's just this whole polar opposites all the time. If it's not one thing, it's something else, and it just seems like it's that way in everything. It's just this constant life roller coaster of ups and downs, and that's, yeah, I don't know, it's just interesting. So that was something that came up for me. Jump out, somebody else, I know you got something to say.
In this particular chapter, I want to go back to the book for a minute. That's hilarious. I totally think that you hit it on the nail, or hit the nail on the head there at the end. That old adage, be careful what you ask for, right? Like when we're out there and we're in our glory, we're in our light body, and we are eternal, unconquerable souls, and they put this checklist in front of us with all these things that could go wrong, and we're like, yeah, I can do that, yeah, woo, give me that, all right, give me that. And we get down here and we go, oh shit, what did I do? Just fix all that. I don't want any of it. But I find this fascinating. And this particular chapter, the soul that chose to reincarnate in a body that was deaf, the reason that she did that in this particular case, according to the mediums and psychics and channelers that were involved in this particular case, she had a previous life where the mother that she has now was also her mother in that life, and those relationships completely change around. One time you might be the mother, one time you might be the father, one time you might be the lover, who knows what we all are to each other. But her mother was in an abusive relationship, and when she was just a small child, the abuser wound up shooting and killing her mom. It was a verbal argument. It was very loud. Then the mother was screaming, ran into the bathroom, slammed the door. The guy had a gun. He wound up going into the bathroom, shooting and killing the mother. At that point, a neighbor actually got the child out of the house, and then the abuser committed suicide. So she heard that shot as well. So she had heard all this screaming from her mother being abused and being murdered, and the gunshots. And she didn't live very long in that life. I think they said she might not have made 30. And she also took her life by suicide in that lifetime because she could not get the sound of the screaming and the sound of the gunshots out of her head. So when she decided to come back into the next life, chose the same mother-daughter relationship came back, but she said, you know, I don't ever want to hear anything like that again. And so her spirit guide asked her, do you want to go in being deaf? And that's the choice that she made. And she did that because she didn't want to ever hear sounds that would, quote, haunt her. Now, there are obviously lots of different reasons why someone would choose, you know, what we refer to as a handicap or a challenge. So it's, you know, this is just this case that we're talking about in particular, but I can totally, like, I understand that because I had an accident, a car accident with my kids in the back seat, and I will never get their scream. Like, I can hear it right now as I'm speaking to you. I can hear them screaming in that accident. So I get it. Would I choose to come back being deaf so that I wouldn't never hear something like that? It's possible, you know. I mean, it depends. If that haunted her for the rest of that lifetime, and obviously it did, it haunted her to the point where she took her own life. I can totally, I mean, it's reasonable. What do you think?
Yeah, I can see how making those just different choices to experience. Well, in the Catherine, I think we've got our chapters a little bit mixed up. I'm guessing because you're listening to the audio version. Because chapter 3 talks about the handicap, and but I see that chapter 4 is about the deaf and the blindness. But it's all good because they're all the stories are good together. And but I wanted to mention when you were talking about the person choosing to come back deaf in the previous chapter. They were talking about the kids, the boys that had the one of them had autism and Asperger's, and then the other one had like an ADD issue and some level of deafness as well. No, it was blindness as well. And they had mentioned something similar where in their previous life, the boys had been propaganda pushers for Hitler, and then the mom had been on the side of she in a different time period. She had been trying to really communicate about the injustices being done. Well, and I guess that was maybe in the same time period, but she was talking about the injustices. She was like a press person trying to express to the world all these injustices being done to the Jews. And when they come back in this life, she's the mom, and they are the sons, and they've inhibited themselves so that they can learn lessons about communicating or being. And also because they had such kind of stress like lives then, their lives now with this mother was they were taken care of without any major responsibilities because of their handicaps. And also they lacked the ability to communicate as easily since they had spread all of this propaganda before. And then for the mom's perspective, hers was, I guess in some previous lives, she had been more of a free spirit with no responsibilities, and she would lose track of what her purpose was in life. You know, kind of Karen or Catherine, you're mentioning coming here with kind of a, you know, this is what our plan is, but then we kind of go off track. And so she had experienced a lot of that in her previous lives. And so she decided to come back with these two in this situation. So she would be more focused. They would keep her focused on what she really wanted to accomplish. And then she would take care of them so they could lead a more cared for life and have to work through communication things. So it's just really interesting how these different stories, how of the ideas that they have of this is why we chose to be what we are, and it makes me kind of really look at my life and go, okay, you know, I've had these certain challenges that, and if this is true, and I did choose to come here, then this makes sense in this way, and that makes sense in that way. So I don't want to hog the call, so everybody has a chance to jump out.
If I can interject here, this has brought up so many different different feelings and thoughts. There's so much involved here. I'm sorry. Maybe I'll have to come back. I can't even sort it out. There's the issues of, okay, the kids with Asperger's or autism, whatever. How does that play into things like are going on now about getting a vaccination out for everybody on the planet, and the effects it would have on people because they're doing these vaccinations like they have forever, only this time they're not having the double-blind studies and all that other stuff because they want it out fast, whatever. So how does that play into each of our individual soul plan? I mean, that, and then the religion factor, and how I just can't grasp all of this. So I'm trying to figure out how, and it's just too confusing. I'll leave that there for now.
I'm with you there. Totally with you there. Hard to wrap my mind around it, and I'm not one that completely believes in reincarnation. But it's very interesting, and I've had my mind open.
I was reminded when Sam talked time before last how impressed I was with the last part of chapter 2. Chapter 2 has a man with AIDS in the beginning. His name is John. And then when they move on from that, there's a woman with breast cancer. And it's kind of a bit of a jumbled going back and forth. The author takes his person that he's chosen to find out about their pre-life planning, usually to a couple of mediums or psychics or someone who has the ability to channel spirit guides or somehow bring up what that experience is before coming into this life. And in that chapter, and in that part of the chapter, which is the last part, which has that woman, I think her name might be Betty, I can't remember for sure. But anyway, and he takes a lot of time explaining about our thoughts, how our thoughts weave in and out through us being souls and having our experiences in the material life, and just a lot of things that help to anchor me down. I had to take a lot of time with several sentences. I would read a sentence and then I would think about all these different things that you're wrapping around, like what about this and what about that and what about Trump, who seems to be messing with everything. Tweet, tweet. Um, anyway, I have long believed in something called the pre-existence. Now, I haven't long believed in reincarnation, but in the pre-existence, I did believe that I helped to plan my life. And certainly, now that I'm much older and probably on the edge, um, I really wonder if I followed any aspect of that plan at all. But one of the things to be aware of is that we can do anything that we might choose uh, today. I'm in a long-term care home. I can walk out of it and I can walk across the freeway and I can, do any number of things. I can expose myself. I'm in Arizona, so I can expose myself to the many thousands that are testing positive and on and on. And I don't think that's what I've planned, but I can do it anyway, and it'll work out. Things will work out. So, Lauren, I would really encourage you to pick up that chapter and see if that doesn't give you a little bit more solidarity about, kind of the normal things that we think about in our lives and how that might fit in. I would hope that you could find some solace in doing that, because I think like the rest of us, it could benefit you a lot.
Dan, are you trying to go? Is Dan going? Who's talking? Okay. Is it Laura, I think? Is the new? Hello, nice to meet you. Yeah, on what you were saying about this time that we're in now, we hear a lot through spiritual leaders or, different people that, our souls chose to come during this time. So, I picture us in our little soul groups up there before we came, like, ooh, this is going to be an exciting time. Like, let's go, because, like, we're going through this big, like, stirring up of everything, of consciousness on the planet right now. So, when I think about that, we chose to come here during this time, that gives me a different perspective on the whole situation. And yeah, it's just interesting to see how we'll all go through this as a collective and see where it goes. I didn't get to read this deafness and blindness chapter, but it reminded me, just thinking about blind people I've known in my life or met briefly, the ones that I can remember, like, just had these humongous hearts, like amazing people, and it's amazing how their other senses are so open, and it's like their heart is even more open because they don't have this sense. I just remember these, so beautiful people. And talking about, stuff from past life, like you were talking about the woman who was deaf and decided not to, hear in that lifetime anymore. I definitely believe that, we come in with beliefs from past lives, so that, come in again and we go recycle them. And it reminds me of thinking, because I've always had this thing with my fingers where I constantly want to like touch them or put them in, like there's something like I want to have them always picking at them or biting them or something, especially when I was a kid, and my parents tried to get me hypnotized and all sorts of things because I just always had this thing with my fingers. And I did a meditation once with someone who was like guiding, to heal old stuff. And I had this vision pop in that in a past life, my fingers were chopped off. And I was like, that's it. Like, it just totally resonated with me. And I was like, yeah, that's what it is. So I feel like it's something I brought in this life. Like, and it's just like, it's almost like I always want to touch them. Like, oh, I have fingers. Oh, yeah. Like, it's exciting because, well, they were chopped off in a past life. So it's really interesting. I was talking to a doctor who has some not conventional beliefs that a lot of doctors in the Western world have. And I grew up not believing much in germ theory. Like, I barely get sick because I never really believed that germs can come in and affect you. And I just always had that mindset. So when I told her that, she's like, wow, you were like that since you were a kid. Your parents must have been that way too. And I'm like, no, they weren't really. She's like, well, it must be from a past life. Like, you just have this belief that germs don't affect you, and so they don't. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting that she said that. It's like you brought that belief in from the past because it wasn't something you were raised into. So yeah, I think it's really, really interesting if we look at, patterns we have or beliefs we have, like that if they go back in this lifetime and we look back as far as we can remember, I've had this belief my whole life. Like, okay, maybe it's something that came in from a past life that I'm carrying forward. So definitely interesting to look at and see those things in a different perspective sometimes and ponder those. So yeah, so woo, go on and on. Yeah, that's interesting because I have been noticing, you've probably heard the phrase, as a man thinketh, so is he. And before this whole pandemic broke out, there is a Netflix series called Last Man on Earth. It's a really stupid show, but a virus wiped out the entire population but one man. And so brings me back to what you were saying, that maybe we choose parts of it, and I don't get a lot of, I'm supposed to have a weakened immune system, but I spent 12 years working with elementary kids, and I think I called in sick twice in that whole time. And so I don't go with the germs, and I have a very unique case of MS. I don't have pain, and I'm not on any medication, and I hope to always keep it that way. Got to do something about this brain here that keeps losing track of whatever it was you said that made me jump in. I'm jumping out again.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we sure can, Dan.
Okay, I'm gonna try this again. I'm on my phone again. In listening to what I could get and pick up during the whole time, I kept getting booted off and stuff. But I've had a lot of things coming in out of my, what I was thinking, and I can't remember everything because I was very frustrated with my laptop. But it's interesting how, like, for me, from my background with, having lived through being abused and stuff and things like that, and what I've gained out of that, and seeing that how I react to other people and deal with other people. I'm wondering if that's part of what my journey is, and things I'm learning. Because I'm kind of like, Samantha. There are a lot of things that I look at and go, okay, I can kind of take that. And then there's other things where I'm like, nope, nope, nope. I'm kind of in that vein too. Um, but I'm trying to piece it all together with me as me personally, because you know the other aspect is that I feel that there's a lot in me that I'm still trying to bring out and share and give to the world, but I also have a hard time showing that too. And I think that's part of maybe what my journey is, learning how to express that and get there. While I feel like I am very expressive at times, but I also feel like there are times where nobody gets what I'm saying either. And that's the other part of it too. So, um, in trying to wrap this all around my head, I'm still trying to, take, as I'm reading and going through the book and put things together to help me with where I'm at. I'm not wanting to worry about what other people is. I'm more looking at where I'm at.
Well, one of the things that I feel compelled to say right now, so who knows who's talking, right? There have even coming in as a very open human being. I mean, having out-of-body experiences at age 2 and knowing my whole life that I'm not this body, even with that physical experience, there are many things, concepts, and ideas that I've come across throughout my life that I rejected. I just rejected immediately. Whether it was from a feeling in my heart or a feeling in my head, sometimes it's hard to distinguish. Sometimes it's very clear, sometimes you're not quite sure who's running the show. Only to maybe a year later, 2 years later, 6 months later, 3 days later, suddenly that concept is, wow, of course, that's, like it's almost like, there's just this divine timing of when we can actually accept certain information. And there are things that earlier I would have completely written off and said, no, that's just not, there's no way that that is correct, and I would have fought to the death for it, and then maybe a year later I'm like, whoa, wow, absolutely, that's exactly, so just, I encourage everybody to always, including myself, I speak to myself, keep our minds open. And I've mentioned this before, if nothing else, this belief to me gives purpose to the suffering, which helps me get through it. It also helps me from, like, blowing up the White House, things like that. When I get, if I start listening to the news, I'm in a household that plays news all the time. So I have to kind of tune that out because I haven't listened to the news in a long time. There's a certain amount of news you have to listen to these days. It's like the Star Trek damage report every morning. When you wake up, you got to look on Google and see, what's going on. But what's keeping me sane through all of this is this belief that we chose to come during this time where, I mean, look at this amazing virus. This is something that you can't even see. It's so microscopic. I mean, we could see it with a microscope, but you can't see it with your eye. And yet look what it has done as far as bringing out inequality in the healthcare. I mean, there's so many, I hate to say it because it's taken all these lives to do this, but it has, what we're seeing, the upheaval in the politics, in the, just the fact that, and I don't want to discuss politics per se, but just to say that it's showing how power can be and has been always, been misused, and how, and all these things are coming to the surface. And I totally believe that we, as these brave and courageous, starseed badasses, decided to come in during this time and be part of this, this mass rising of consciousness. Because until people experience suffering on a personal level, or with someone that they love dearly, that message doesn't hit home. It just doesn't hit home. And so we're seeing it now. The inequalities have always been there, but we didn't see them before. Now we're seeing them. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I will never get George Floyd's last words out of my head. I hear those words, and I hate to think how I would have reacted if that was my son. I don't think I would have the grace that family has shown. And yet, I believe that George volunteered to do that, to experience that. As horrible as that sounds, I believe that he's like a hero to me. Like, I believe that he chose that experience to bring that final, thank God, awareness to everything going on, so that people would actually look past the color of people's skin. And we're, there's a lot of work to do there. There's a lot of work to do there, because people have prejudices that they don't even know that they have, or that they're unwilling to admit that they have. But it's a start. It's a huge start. And so, Lori, I think you dropped off the line, but maybe you'll watch this later. When you ask, well, how does that apply to this virus? How does it apply to the politics? How does it apply? I think that we knew that all this shit was going to go down. I mean, we forget when we come in as humans, but I think that we knew. Think about the people on this panel. Think about the people that that you have that soul connection with. They're amazing fucking people, you guys. Like, you guys are amazing people. It's like, I feel so honored here during this time.
I'm now on the computer, Catherine.
Oh, good. I'm glad you came back.
My camera doesn't work, so.
I think Catherine hit the exit button instead of her unmute button. She'll be back. Yeah, we're glad you jumped back in, Lori. And sometimes it's easier on the computer, even if we can't see you, you can see us. And you kind of can watch expressions and get an idea of when somebody's trying to jump in or not, or out or whatever. There she is. I'm guessing you hit the exit button instead of the mute button. Yeah, I've done that. I just wanted to just kind of mention we're already past the top of the hour, so if everybody wants to just share a final couple of words, and we can always jump back into this again next week too, because there's a lot we could say on this whole global messages and stuff of all the different things that have happened over the history of human time. Okay, Jason, I saw you popping out. Jump out.
Yeah, I'll try to make this quick. Gosh, it was all such great points, and really got me thinking. And I was, I'm new to the whole reincarnation and the spiritual medium stuff and everything. And one thing that I was thinking about, though, in regards to what you're saying, Catherine. See, I'm one that believes like our life is. And I think we're more than our bodies, like you were saying as well. We're definitely our bodies are not are like vessels. Is the way I believe. I'm spiritual, and the thing is, one of the things when you were mentioning about we're deciding and choosing what we wanted to be or what we were willing to take on in our next life, and you were also mentioning how, like, in our spirit, as our spirit selves, how we're like we feel like invincible or not, or like just really really powerful and willing to take on anything. But then you also mentioned that the person had gone through previous stuff, and then they chose to do something else, because of what they had gone through in a previous life. So my question is do our souls or spirits, or do they take on baggage, like we take on baggage as we experiencing things through life? Because if as a soul, you come at after you die, you're like, I don't want to go through that again. That was really, terrible. I never want to have to experience that again. And then your spirit guide says, well, then do you want to do this? And then you're like, okay, I'll do that. That kind of makes me think that, you're as your soul, you don't die. And after you leave this life, you don't, completely shed the trappings of our mortal being, but we actually carry on this baggage. But then you also said that we, or alluded to that we don't have any baggage when we're in that state. And then the other thing is you spoke about spirit guides, and I was just wondering if the spirit guide ever incarnates, or if you get to choose to be a spirit guide and not incarnate. So I'll turn my mic off and listen to what you have to say. And really appreciate everybody. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to Karen because my connection went out earlier. But thanks, thank you, everyone.
So just to touch on that quick, because I know we're after the top of the hour. Obviously, none of us know for sure. All we can do is go by what different people with connections on the other side, the information that they bring forth to us, and experiences that we've had. Now, I don't know. Like, I always felt like once you were out of the body, you were just back to being your perfect self. From what I'm learning from the soulproof.com website is that, because I've never really bought into this new soul, old soul concept. I just felt like we were all old souls. But I always thought everybody loved watermelon too. So, the first time I found out somebody didn't like watermelon, it blew my mind. I'm serious. Because it's like the most delicious food on earth to me. So, so sometimes we can't even grasp the differences that we may have. But I think that the only judgment, this is just my belief, okay? I think the only judgment is when we look back at the last life that we had and we kind of judge ourselves and say, okay, I could have done that better. I did really good there. That was awesome. Oh, you really messed up there, kind of thing. And then I think we plan to change those things in the next one, or experience the other side of whatever we put off on somebody else or something like that. I didn't realize I was on the wrong chapter. Sorry, guys. But in the chapter that I was on, one of the concepts that it brings up is that for this deaf lady in this life, the father that killed the mother in the previous life that soul agreed not even to incarnate in this life, because even though he could have incarnated into a body that wasn't even associated with her in any way, as souls, we are connected. And she would be able, as sensitive as she was, she would be able to just feel sort of his presence. So to me, that was a little bit of like, well, wait a minute, you know, why couldn't he have come in as somebody that and fixed what he did the last time? You know, somebody that was really good to her in this life, or helped her work through her fears of hearing or whatever. You know, why didn't he fix that this life? And the answer was, there's time for that. Like, there's no time, there's not a sense of urgency to get these things fixed, because we're eternal souls and we have lots of time to work on these things. So the next time you tell yourself you don't have time for something, remind yourself you're an eternal soul. But we'll talk more about those topics next week, Jason. And Lori, looks like you want to come out. Come on out.
Okay, I'm here. Thanks for the laugh, Catherine. That was funny about the watermelon. I'm glad I stopped in on this. I guess I have a new Saturday morning routine. Like, I don't have so much to do anymore, you know? Just following the orders, supposedly.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm in the process of ordering the book. Is there a place that you'd prefer I'd order it? Or, oh.
Nope, you can get it wherever you want, hon.
Well, that's what I mean. If there was something to support the group, then I would do it that way. Because I'm all about supporting small business. So bless you all. I'm done.
That's because you're awesome. I'm so glad you're here with us. We used to have, I think, an Amazon link or Google link or something, but I don't think we have it anymore. Do we, Samantha?
No, at one point our affiliate membership got, I don't know, deleted because I didn't answer an email or something silly like that. I don't know what it was, and so the most recent link I used was like an affiliate link that supports paperbackswap.com. So you know, it doesn't really make a big difference. It just was, that was one of the book sites I like to use, and figured that, you know, if you click that link, you can support them if you want. Actually, I think that link is in the Facebook event that you shared, Lori. If you scroll into the description, if you wanted to support paperbackswap.com, they'll get some kind of little commission from it. If not, feel free to support whatever you want through Amazon affiliate links, or buy it wherever. It doesn't make a difference at this point.
Okay, I will probably do an Audible because I've moved enough times. I don't need to pack any more books. I haven't moved in a long time. This is the longest I've ever been somewhere. But I'll probably do the Audible. Nice to meet you all. Maybe I'll get my camera fixed.
Awesome, Lori. Anybody else have final thoughts before we wrap up today?
Hopefully next week my computer will cooperate with me and I won't have to use my phone, because I'm not crazy about using my phone. I'd rather use my laptop.
And I think maybe that's the struggle that you were agreeing to have to deal with in this lifetime, is your internet connection for some reason. Great to be here. Good to meet you, Lori.
Thanks. Nice to meet you all too. Jumbling with the phone because I have tremors, and that was not fun. I wanted to hear what Dan was saying, or was it Dan that was talking? I disappeared. Technical difficulties.
I have
Ciao for
forgotten
now.
half of what I was going to say anyway. So,
Oh, yeah, well, that happens to me too. Ciao for now.
All right, guys, we'll wrap up for today. I just want to thank each of you for joining in and sharing your thoughts and feelings and opinions with us on this book. This is definitely a very deep dive into the whole idea of souls in general and our human existence. So it's just really an exciting book to dive into, to explore these topics. So with that, guys, for anybody who's watching, if you're still watching at this point, I know we kind of like lost our conversation there for a little bit, just talking to each other. That's great. But if you're still watching, click like, because obviously you liked it enough to follow to the end, and subscribe to our channel so you get notified when we upload the next video. And then jump into our Facebook group. MindsetMasteryCollective.com will take you directly into our Facebook group where you can join us there, and then we post everything there. So with that, have a great, awesome, amazing week, and we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.